Welcome to the Copeland Coaching Podcast, where it's all about turning your job search into a slam dunk. Your host is Angela Copeland.
Welcome to the Copeland Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Angela Copeland. Live on the phone with me today, I have Ann Lewis in San Francisco, California. Ann is the Director of Sales at Betts Recruiting. Betts Recruiting is a recruiting agency that partners with the most innovative and rapidly growing VC-backed companies. They help these organizations scale their sales and marketing teams to partner and find their crucial hires. Their team is experienced in finding talent from the VP level to recent graduates and everything in between. And thanks for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Angela.
Well, it's really exciting to connect with you. You are not only in the recruiting space, but in a really interesting kind of unique part. Can you share with us a little bit about the types of VC-backed companies that you represent, and what do you think it is about Betts that makes you different from other sort of recruiting companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So high level, Betts Recruiting supports early to mid-stage companies. Typically they are, VC-backed. They have some sort of funding and support and are now looking to take their company to the next level by adding revenue-generating employees. So some of our top named accounts that we've worked with, companies like MuleSoft, AnyTurk, Burst, Engagio, these up-and-coming startups that have, a proven product and strong leadership and are now looking to add strategic employees to their team. And in terms of what differentiates Betts Recruiting from the competition, there's definitely other great recruiting agencies out there, but I feel that a huge strength of ours is the idea of building relationships. And we really take the time and effort to not only meet all of our clients, all the companies that we work with in person, either at their office or in our office, to really get a sense of the leadership and their story and their culture, but also on the candidate side. We meet every single candidate that we work with in person to ensure that the intangibles are a match and are going to, in turn, become a long-term fit.
Oh, that's great. Well, I can tell you many of our listeners have a background in technology and are really interested to not only move to California, but to work for startups. And I'm curious, from your perspective, from a hiring perspective, companies often want to go with a local candidate first. If we're located in another part of the country, what could we do to differentiate ourselves from those local candidates?
Yeah, I definitely say that there is a challenge of proximity. We have very successfully found jobs for individuals who are looking to move to the Bay Area, for example, or to any of our other markets. I think it really takes, being on the same page about the search being a priority level. We are definitely willing to put in the time to push for these individuals with our clients, maybe hop on a Skype call or something so we can at least get a sense of their personality. We do recommend people being able to come out here on short notice for an interview, which I know can be tricky, but sometimes our process just moves so quickly from phone screen to an on-site because our clients are looking to hire so quickly. So we do recommend to at least, when they get in the interview process, maybe do phone screens from where they're located and then come out here, crash on a friend's couch or something for a week to, knock a bunch of on-site interviews out. We've seen a lot of success in the past, but I think definitely working with a recruiting agency like Betts, we're able to really push internally for strong candidates that are out of market and, just having that strong relationship with our clients, they definitely trust our opinion.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So do you think that there are certain jobs where it's easier to push for an out-of-town client versus other jobs where it's maybe more difficult, like there are more of certain types of people already in San Francisco?
I wouldn't say necessarily.
Okay.
We've seen it work for, both high-level VP, very strategic roles, as well as, SDR, a recent graduate who, has dreamed of moving to San Francisco. So we've definitely seen it work on both ends, I would say.
Okay. Well, so a question that I get literally probably every day is how to work with recruiters. And I guess the first question is, how would somebody find you and get in touch with you if they were interested to, work with you and get your services?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people will find us, on the internet, either Googling recruiting agencies, they can visit our website as well and apply to work with a recruiter and speak with them about their search. So I would say that's probably the easiest way. Otherwise, LinkedIn, we typically have some postings on behalf of our clients as well, or just word of mouth. I definitely feel that we've built a strong brand in the Bay Area, especially in our other markets as well. So that's how I would say that the primary way of finding us would be. And then in terms of our process, we definitely have a very hands-on approach and are very invested in people's searches. So we'll either hop on a conversation with them, a call with them, or we'll bring them in person to meet with them and really hear their story, why they're looking, about their background, really diving into what they're looking for to ensure that we find a good match. And from there, we start making introductions to our clients. We're strategic on our end to make sure that we're only making intros to opportunities that align with what the candidate's looking for. And then throughout the process, we're definitely an advocate for them. We prep them before every single interview just to make sure that they feel comfortable going into the call or the on-site. We debrief with them after every interview as well, just to get their feedback that we can share with our clients and, essentially move the whole process forward through offer stage, where we're, a part of negotiation stages and helping them, weigh two opportunities and make a pro and cons list. So we're definitely, their advocate throughout their search. And the relationship doesn't continue after we find them a job either. We check in their first week, their first month. We continue that relationship moving forward because we know it's important to make sure that they're happy in their new role and that they can find long-term success.
Right, absolutely. So when someone reaches out to you, should they have a particular job in mind, like that they saw on your website, or should they reach out even if they don't see a particular posting that they're interested in?
I would say that since we do work on revenue-generating roles, we don't work on a huge scope of roles that may be part of our growth in the future. But since we do work on pretty particular revenue-generating roles, even the sales development roles where they're open to recent graduates or people coming from different industries that have some skills that could transfer over to a sales role, it is important from our client's perspective to know what you want and to have a sense of direction for your search. That's definitely something that's important to our clients, that someone wants to be in sales and hit the ground running and grow into an account executive or grow on the sales team. So, that's definitely something that we advise our candidates on to, if they're not really sure what they want or how their background can transfer over, definitely tell them about opportunities like sales or customer success, but also encourage them to leverage their own network and do their own search to really hone in on what would be a good match for their skill set.
Sure. So the positions that you work to fill, are all of those positions listed on your website, or do they not all make it to your website? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so for specific positions, we don't necessarily have a list of open roles that we're working on, but we definitely have information on our website about the types of roles that we work on. So As I mentioned, being revenue-generating roles, those include sales roles of all levels, from, recent graduates to, VPs of sales who have built out worldwide sales organizations, all of those levels of sales in between, as well as customer-facing roles like customer success or account management, marketing, sales engineering, and sales operations, so slightly more technical roles. Those are the general types of positions that we work on. Again, all connecting somehow to revenue for these companies.
Okay, so it sounds like we should have a good idea of the kind of role we'd like, but we don't have to know the exact job posting.
Exactly.
Is that true? Okay, very good. So once we've met you and say we've met in person, you've gotten to know us, you have a copy of our resume. At that point, how do we stay engaged with you? So I have the opportunity to kind of hear both sides, and I sometimes hear from job seekers, they don't want to annoy you, the recruiter. And then I hear from recruiters that they don't hear back often enough from the job seeker. So what's sort of an appropriate level of communication during the process?
I mean, we always advocate for full transparency and being upfront and giving feedback about someone's resume or background. So if there's someone who comes to us and it's maybe not the best fit, and it would be difficult for us to be a legitimate resource for them. We're definitely going to be upfront with them and set expectations. At the end of the day, it's tricky to help every single person, especially since some of our roles are more particular from what our clients are seeking. But I think just being honest and setting expectations that we'll definitely reach out and check in if something does come across our desk. And we encourage candidates to reach back out as well. I would say when we're actively working with an individual on their job search, there's definitely a lot of communication back and forth where, any given recruiter might be talking to candidates on a daily basis just around interview process, updates on, the job search on their own end, et cetera. So there's definitely a high level of communication across calls, emails, texts, since we do have this hands-on approach. And the candidates really do turn to their recruiters for advice just around their job search in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard from some recruiters that they would prefer that the candidate maybe email them. If they haven't heard anything, email them, say, once a week just to check in. And that if they don't, that they assume the candidate has stopped looking. Would you agree with that? Or do you, where do you fall on that?
I wouldn't necessarily say it indicates they've stopped working. I think, we definitely encourage candidates to check in with us. I think it really depends on how often, based on, if we have some jobs that could be a match for them. If we definitely don't see having a match in the foreseeable future, then maybe we'll say, we'll check in once a month and just see how your search is going. But it might be that they're a great fit. We just don't have a specific open role that's exactly what they're looking for. So maybe that is appropriate to reach out on a weekly basis and check in. So I think it's good to have an open communication going, and on the recruiter's end, them just being transparent about what they're working on currently, which, at least on our end, constantly changes. We're filling positions, we're kicking off new roles on a weekly basis. So what we have in the mix is constantly changing, and it's definitely, part of the recruiter's responsibility to stay in touch with their candidates and, update them on the changes internally.
Mm-hmm. And it seems too like, I'm always encouraging job seekers to not be afraid to reach out to a recruiter. It seems like probably as a recruiter, you're probably always trying to meet new candidates, and you wouldn't be opposed as long as the person had a background that was kind of in line with what you were looking for. I don't think you'd be opposed to a cold call from a candidate. Is that true?
Yeah, not at all. No, if anything, we're impressed by their, by them taking initiative and being proactive in their search to reach out and show that they're serious. Some of the best people that we work with are the ones that are very invested in their search and are dedicated to finding a job. And, when we feel the same way and we can work together on that, it definitely makes for a successful search. So, I would say that recruiters, a big thing that they do are network and really just have conversations with people. Even if we don't have an open role for them right now, it's good to start that relationship and be in touch in case, they have any friends in their network that may need a job, or to just stay in touch too around that individual search, even if it's something that doesn't come to fruition for a few months or so. So I would say our recruiters are definitely open to, meeting someone for coffee, having them pop into the office just to, have a conversation around their search.
That's really good feedback. I really hope if there's anything that our listeners take away today, it's this. Because I do meet a lot of people who are nervous to reach out to recruiters. That's really, really good feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, in this market at least, and in the other markets, it's really all about who you know. And even if, we can't help them immediately, it's just good to put yourself out there and start having those conversations, because one conversation can lead to the next. We may have some ideas around what direction to point them in if they are looking for, a finance recruiting firm or, a different type of role. So I would definitely say, put yourself out there and start having those conversations.
Yeah, the other interesting thing that I noticed when I went to your website is you're not just in San Francisco, you're in a number of cities, but it looked like you're primarily in cities where technology is happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I noticed like Austin and I think New York, and there were a number, but they were all places I would expect to see startups.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Austin, New York, London as well, and Palo Alto. So these are all markets that we've seen this kind of emerging tech scene grow in these different markets. And, we've started working on some searches remotely from here in San Francisco until, we saw that there was definitely enough need out there for support for these growing companies, or maybe clients that we're working with here in San Francisco that are opening an office in those different markets. And that's kind of, naturally driven our offices being opened in these different locations. And it's really exciting to see some of these, markets grow and start with, a few major tech companies and really be built out and have a lot of jobs for individuals, but also to see these companies grow. It's been really cool to see.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, not to get too far off track, but you mentioned London. I speak with people all the time that are interested to move to Europe from the U.S., and I know it's a really tough thing to do. When your office is looking for people in London, is it primarily kind of a local search, or do you ever see people going from the U.S. to Europe for those positions?
I would say primarily it's local, not always. I think it really depends on what the clients are looking for. I also think, just like we talked about with proximity here in the Bay Area, there's definitely that hurdle, even more so, of distance if a company over there is trying to move quickly. So, I would say same thing. If they're very dedicated and are willing to go out there for interviews, then it can certainly work. I think it really just depends on the client's timeline, the candidate's timeline, and making sure that aligns.
Absolutely. Well, from your experience, like in the San Francisco area, how long does a job search usually take for you from the time that you meet a candidate until they're placed?
I would say it's relative based on the level of experience. So, when we start with our entry level, our junior level roles, we've seen turnaround time be as quick as 4 or 5 days even.
Oh, wow.
Where, our clients come to us, they say, we needed this hire yesterday and we need them to, hit the ground running and start adding value for our organization. And same thing on the candidate end. We have candidates who, want a job now. And when you find that good match and that timeline aligns, it can happen really quickly. I would say on average for those entry-level roles, it's, about 2 to 3 weeks. And then it just goes up. I would say for director, VP level, some of our recruiters work with candidates for a year until they find the right opportunity, because maybe they, take another job and it didn't work out, or, they decide not to move forward with some of our clients and vice versa. So it's just kind of that open communication, constantly keeping them top of mind until they eventually find a fit, because I feel like with more senior candidates, it's a bigger job switch, right? And it's also a bigger hire on the client's end. So they definitely, there's a lot of thought put into it, where they want to make sure that they're strategic about their next move and hire. So those can definitely take, a few months at least.
No, I think you just made some really good points. I talk to people a lot who have just kind of gone up in their careers, and they become really surprised and kind of disappointed at how much longer it takes to find a job as you go on in your career, as you become higher level. So I think, even the ranges that you just gave really demonstrate that that does happen. When you're younger, it's easier than as you become like a vice president.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, we've also had cases where, we worked with enterprise sales reps or, sales managers, and again, the timeline just aligned, where it's perfect timing on their end, perfect timing on the client's end, where that individual was exactly what they're looking for. We've seen some of those happen in 3 to 4 weeks also. So I think, again, it's case by case, but it's just, mainly about finding the right fit on both ends.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm curious, how often, or do you ever work with people who say they live in the middle of the country and they're so determined to go to San Francisco that they move there with no job, and then you start helping them? Do you ever see that scenario?
We do, yes. We definitely do. We see people who say, I'm so committed to coming to San Francisco that, I'm quitting my job, I'm packing my bags, and let's start this job search. And, I think on our end, we definitely, it's a risk, but we appreciate that dedication, because it shows that they are, really committed to doing this, and typically will crash on a friend's couch or whatnot. But it's great to have them here and for them to be available for an interview. If they have a phone screen one day and the client is so impressed with them, they want them to come in that very next day into the office for an on-site. They have the flexibility of doing that, and I would definitely say across the board, we've seen people have more success in their job search being out here. So yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, I don't know that I'm that much of a risk taker that I would do that, but I do think, for somebody who's really determined, maybe that could be a potential option if they're struggling from where they are. But
yeah, absolutely. But on the other end of the spectrum, we totally understand that it's a scary thing to quit your job and pick up and move potentially across the country without having a sure thing. So that's why we're also very open, as long as we're on the same page, to work with individuals who, might still be in their job or might still be in that location before making the jump. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, when I was preparing for our discussion today, I was really excited when I saw in your own background that you have a pretty big career change. It looks like you started more in the medical field as both a medical intern and a medical assistant. And I'm curious, what caused you to want to go to staffing, and how did you make that jump? Because it's a pretty big change.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. So I was pre-med during school, and I've always had an interest in medicine and been fascinated by that field. And once I started taking some marketing classes, I realized that I really loved being able to, explain the value of something and communicate with people. And then I was ultimately pursuing medical device sales, where I could kind of bridge the gap between the two, and still, be in the medical field, but be able to, work with people on a daily basis and work towards goals in a sales role. And actually, funny one-off thing happened where I actually ran into a sorority sister before I graduated who was at Vets. So she told me about, she had actually worked for a medical device company and had made the switch from that to Vets recruiting. So she told me all about recruiting, which I really didn't know that much about. And I just started the interview process, and besides the staffing element, the roles and responsibilities of the actual job itself just aligned perfectly with what I was looking for, what my strengths were, and ultimately it ended up being a very great fit where I'm able to stay somewhere long term. I've been here 3.5 years, and it's been an amazing journey to add value to this company and be in this field. So.
Oh, that's such a great story. And I think the really good sort of lesson there is just how important those personal connections are.
Absolutely, right? It's all about who you know again. And I definitely got lucky running into her. But I've seen people make other industry changes too, even candidates of ours where they come from finance and they really want to get into tech sales. And, there's definitely some hurdles that people go over, but it's absolutely possible. And I think when you look at someone's background and you break it down to the actual skills that they embody, and whether it's being client-facing or having live conversations on the phone, it's great to see our clients be open to those backgrounds because, they look a little deeper into their background and realize they have the skills that can transfer over to a successful sales role, and it doesn't have to be that they come from that exact space or role. So I would definitely say more and more so our clients, at least for junior level roles and mid-level roles, are definitely open to that. Whereas it can be more of a challenge for higher level individuals too. So yeah.
Well, that's great. And I mean, it's really promising for those of us who are listening and really wanting to make a career change. So if we are listening today and we'd like to get more information about you or Vets Recruiting, where should we go?
Yeah, feel free to visit our website at vetsrecruiting.com. We have a space where you can upload your LinkedIn profile and put in what you're looking for, and we will definitely hook you up with a recruiter. Or all of our contact information for the recruiters or any members in the office, including mine, they're on our LinkedIn pages. They're on the website as well. So feel free to reach out to anyone directly in the company. Call our main line. There's definitely our contact information out there, and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction and put you, or connect you with the most appropriate person in our organization. So.
Awesome. Well, I will include a link to your website in the show notes, and I really appreciate you joining me today. This has been great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, and hopefully this has added value to some people's searches out there to really put themselves out there and take action and be proactive with their searches, because as long as you are determined and you know what you want, we can definitely help people find their dream job. So.
Yes, great. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much, Angela.
Thanks everyone for listening, and thanks to those of you who sent me questions. You can send me your questions to angela@copelandcoaching.com. You can also send me your questions via Twitter. I'm @CopelandCoach, and on Facebook, I'm Copeland Coaching. Don't forget to help me out, subscribe on iTunes, and leave me a review.
Thank you for listening to the Copeland Coaching Podcast today with your host, Angela Copeland. Tune in next time to get more great tips on turning your job search into a slam dunk.